Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council regular meeting for Monday, August the 9th, 2021. I will call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson absent. Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Holman absent. Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Councilmember Will Scherzer.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We don't have any presentations or awards nor personal appearances tonight, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. A couple of items this evening. I'll start off, just briefly talk about
Excuse me, Jim, just a second. Let the record reflect that Mr. Holman is now present. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Briefly talk about the building permit activity. As was mentioned a couple of months ago, we are seeing that the single-family home permits are slowing down as we anticipated, with the number of lots available now below 200. We're down to 191 lots available. Although we're still ahead of last year's number of permits that were issued at this time, unless we have a strong fall, I think we'll fall slightly below what we issued last year, although in the fiscal year we have exceeded what we had budgeted for, so that was good to see this year. With that note, good news being that we have a number of single-family subdivisions that we've either already approved, such as the Saddlebrook, the Prairie at Carroll Farms, the Parkside subdivision, all three working on final plats to get lots in the ground. This evening we have the Sendero request before you. We're also currently reviewing applications for the Phase 2 of Madison Valley, and we expect the Phase 2 of Whitetail Run to come in shortly as well. So seeing activity, spread out throughout the city, but a lot of different developers wanting to get lots in the ground. So that'll make lots available for builders and hopefully our permit activity to pick up again in 2022. Our calendar for upcoming meetings, next Tuesday, the August 17th, we have a Board of Adjustment meeting at 6 o'clock. We have a request for a variance by Pam Hatcher wanting to subdivide her lot. She has a large 32-acre property. It looks like a piano key. It's very narrow but very deep. And so looking at creating two lots behind the property where their home is at for their children to build on the lot. So they do need a variance for that property, for that to occur. And then at 7 o'clock that evening, our Planning Commission has a public hearing for the rezoning of approximately 8 acres. It's located south of Lucy Webb Road to the west of Dean Avenue, part of the Good Ranch property. Not at the hard corner where the roundabout is, kind of closer to I-49. 8 acres proposed to be rezoned from commercial to PUD. What they're proposing on this 8 acres is an age-restricted garden villa apartment community proposed by Mako. If you recall, last year Mako was looking at the property north of the Price Chopper. So they still want to do the project. They are focusing on this property at this time. Also that evening on the 17th, we'll have the site plan for the Whataburger proposed where the former Golden Corral restaurant was at. And then on September 7th, we have 3 items on the Planning Commission agenda that evening. The Madison Valley Phase 2 development proposing a new preliminary plat for their property and a rezoning. Again, single family, they're looking to go from our R1 to the R1.5, slightly modified lot sizes from the R1. And then we'll have the public hearing for our 2022-2026 capital improvement plan for the commission to consider that evening. So those are the cases we have on our agenda, and that will conclude staff report.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions of Mr. Carteret? All right, Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Mr. Gruss to make a report this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council, I'm excited to be here this evening to share with you all some really exciting news about the activity going on at the Raymore Commerce Center that we've been itching to share with you all for the past couple of months. As of this afternoon, Building 1, which is the building that has been constructed and completed, has closed. Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits of Missouri purchased that building today and closed on that transaction. A little bit about that company. If you've ever purchased any bottle of fine wine or spirits in Missouri, chances are one of three of those came through one of their facilities. They are the nation's largest distributor of fine wines and spirits throughout the United States. The company altogether holds more than 33% market share across the U.S. In terms of the items that they sell and distribute throughout their warehouses. And so it'll be a long several months ahead as they work on some of the interior finishes for their operation inside that building. I would anticipate a year or more, just given the availability of materials that are needed for that. But very excited to have that transaction closed and have them committed to being a part of the community moving forward. That would conclude my report at this time. Not a whole lot to share, but just wanted to make the council aware of who that company was and who they can expect to be working here in the community over the next several years. So happy to answer any questions at this time that the council may have.
Great news, David. Yeah, anybody have any questions? Mr. Holman?
It may be too early. Do we have any kind of projections on like number of jobs that might be opened up at this facility for?
At this point, we do not. What I can tell you is that the building, when it was first constructed and designed, before this company made the offer on the building, part of that offer was contingent on adding more parking for both automobiles for employees and for trucks and trailers. So it exceeds, I think, what Van Trust was expecting for an employee count when they initially built that building. But we do not have those numbers quite yet.
That's good news. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Great news. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Grust. Just a brief postscript to that. What we do know is that last year nationwide, Southern Glazers had sales of approximately $30.5 billion. That's nationwide. They have, by federal law, they have to have presence in every single state that they distribute to. They only distribute by state. This will be the primary Missouri distribution point with expectancies for the future. They are a worldwide firm, and if you go to their website, perhaps after the meeting, you will note that they have an incredible corporate presence in the communities that they are residing in. So we're looking forward to hearing a lot from them in the future. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a staff report for emergency management.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Murdoch couldn't be here tonight, so you're all going to have to listen to me talk about COVID, unfortunately. One thing, probably not surprising to anyone on the council, is that Mr. Fearborn determined that, based on things that are happening throughout the country and right here in Cass County, that the COVID team has re-adjourned and is now meeting again to talk about the current situation, upcoming events, and other necessary information that we'll be pushing out to the community. But I thought I'd give you all just sort of a brief overview tonight. I know you probably saw some of those numbers in the weekly report that just came out from us, but I just thought I would let everyone else know sort of what's going on. Of course, cases in Raymore have continued to increase over the past month, and we would encourage residents to take mitigation measures while indoors in public settings, whether to wear a mask, keep distance, that sort of thing. Over 300 cases reported in Cass County in the week ending July 31st. That's 6 straight weeks of increases that have happened here in Cass County, including nearly doubling of cases in each of the last of those 3 weeks in that same time period. In that same week, ending on July 31st, Raymore reported 55 cases, which is more than double from the previous week. Vaccines are readily available at numerous locations and still considered the best option to curb the pandemic. If anyone has additional information, if anyone needs additional information regarding vaccines, the best bet is to contact the Cass County Health Department to find out where those vaccine locations are. But we have begun discussions among the COVID group here about pushing that information out on the city website as well, to make sure that our community and our residents are kept fully aware of that information as it develops. Just a few pointers that we wanted to be sure and share with folks about being conscious and respectful of our businesses in Raymore. Different businesses have different rules about mask wearing and that sort of thing. So to be conscious and respectful of those businesses who have either maintained a mask mandate or have put something new in place since things have started to change. So be conscious of that, because just because a business didn't have a mask mandate a week ago, they might now. And so we want folks to be aware of that. Always consider checking COVID restrictions if you're going to be traveling. And that's not just traveling, here in the metropolitan area. Obviously, Kansas City's mandate is different than it is here. But if you're traveling, of course, out of the metropolitan area, out of state, or to a different place, be aware of what those mandates are, because they will be different, and you need to be respectful of those things as you travel. So, those different cities, different states, and different businesses obviously have different rules. Health departments and chief medical officers are meeting weekly. Ryan takes part in all of those to make sure that he can keep us and we can keep you all up to date on those things as they change. And then they present a summary of their discussion to their local jurisdictions. So we will be making sure that we push that information out to you all as well. And at this time, in all of those conversations that Ryan has been taking part in, there are no plans to restrict capacities or events. Obviously, some of those mask mandates, some of those things, have changed how some of those events occur. But at this time, they're not talking about restricting any of those events. And what Ryan wanted to make sure that, folks knew that if there are any questions, he's happy to answer, for the council or for anyone else. The health department is the best source of information, but he did mention, there's a lot of concern, obviously, about the Delta variant and the transmission of that disease, and that, obviously, again, vaccinations are the best bet, for folks with those concerns. But he's happy to answer any and all questions, obviously, for the council or anyone else that has concerns. So, and I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone have anything? Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the report. I imagine you had a busy weekend this last weekend?
No, not at all.
Yeah. I wonder if you had anything you could share with the council, how'd it go, and you meet your goals?
It went really well. Councilwoman Abdelgawad had the most important job there. She kept me from falling on the stairs getting into the boxing ring. I really feel like it was a great event. We don't know numbers yet. The real tell will be, of course, how much money we made for the charity. But all of the boxers did great, and nobody got hurt, and it was just a really good event. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thanks, Chief. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Chief. A couple of scheduling items for the council. Tomorrow night, tomorrow is Missouri's 200th birthday. We have partnered with the Historical Society they will have a presence at tomorrow night's Farmers Market. In fact, they will have a tent, and we will be encouraging folks they'll have somebody over at their location for tours for that event. We are offering Shivers, a couple of departures from our normal. We're offering Shivers shaved ice for anyone who's out there and would like some. They're probably going to need it. And we're also going to have some souped up, I'll use the old-fashioned term, some souped up music entertainment for that particular event as well. Following that, Wednesday night, just a reminder to the city council members who have signed up, we do have the Joint Cities meeting that we are hosting this year. It's over at Centerview. And last but certainly not least, next Monday night, August 16th, will be the transmittal of the fiscal year 2022 budget to the city council by the city manager. As is traditional, we start that meeting early. We started at 6, and we feed the council during it. That's always a little bit of a worry to be feeding you all when I'm presenting the budget, because I know that it's a pretty boring presentation. So we'll make sure we have some caffeine there for you all as well to keep you awake. That concludes staff reports tonight. So.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. So the Joint Cities meeting is this Wednesday night, correct?
That is correct. The League of Cities is the following Wednesday
Wednesday.
night.
Okay, thanks. That's what I had. I just wanted to make sure. Anyone have any questions of Mr. Fearborn? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We only have the one item on the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve consent agenda item A, City Council minutes for July 26, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson, absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Will Scherzer?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3641 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3641 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain officials and candidates for elective offices.
As you know, this is an annual ordinance that we always have to provide by state statute. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3641, Financial Disclosure Ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3641. Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson, absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3642 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3642 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with T.C. Fuller Construction, LLC for the 2021 fire hydrant replacement project, City Project Number 21-382-201, for the negotiated amount of $131,503, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3642, Award of Contract 2021 Fire Hydrant Replacement Project.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I will second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3642. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank Mr. Krast for the map. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson, absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3643 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3643 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from C3 Regional Commercial District to R3B Apartment Community Residential District, a 21-acre tract of land located east of Dean Avenue, south of the Raymore Galleria in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item requires a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time, and I'll ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make the staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The request this evening was filed by Garrett Linville, representing Thompson Thrift Development, LLC. Mr. Linville had been here previously in front of the council as part of work session presentations to you on this project. The request this evening is to reclassify the zoning of 21 acres from our C3 Regional Commercial District to our R3B, which is our Apartment Community Residential District. This property is on the east side of Dean Avenue. It's south of the Office Max, south of the Sam's Club facilities. The surrounding zoning to the north, those commercial properties are zone C3. To the east is our Fox Haven subdivision, zoned R1. To the south is the Timber Trail subdivision, undeveloped portion of it, that's zoned R1. And directly to the west, across Dean Avenue, is the multifamily area for the Timber Trails townhomes. Dean Avenue, which will provide access to the property, is classified as a minor arterial roadway. A reclassification of zoning does require a public hearing that was advertised for this evening. Want to enter into the record the notices that were sent to all the adjoining property owners. The notice that was published in the Journal, our Unified Development Code, the application submitted, our growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. This property was rezoned as part of the Raymore Galleria rezoning when that occurred. It was rezoned to C3 back in March of 2005. This tract has remained undeveloped since then. On this reclassification of zoning, we did hold a good neighbor meeting back on June 23rd. We had 11 residents attend that good neighbor meeting, and I've outlined the questions the residents had as well as the responses that were provided that evening. The R3B apartment zoning district, again, its principal use is for a unified apartment community under single ownership over the entire property. Currently, we have 8 properties in the city that have this zoning classification. A couple of the developed properties include the Lofts at Fox Ridge, the Manor Homes apartment community, Greenway Villas off of Lucy Webb Road in Walnut Estates. Rezoning to this R3B district, there are use-specific standards that we have to look at when they come forward with the development, which deals with the separation between buildings. We have specific design standards for apartment buildings as well as requirements for common open space. On this property under the proposed zoning, the maximum density calculated out would allow for up to 458 units. As we know, Watermark is proposing 300 units, which equates to a zoning of about 14.26 units per acre, which is right in line with several other communities that we have. Manor Homes in Eagle Glen is 14.5 units an acre. Walnut Estates off of Walnut Street is 14.5 acres. The Lofts, a little bit denser at 16.5 units an acre, just for comparisons. As with any development rezoning request, we did submit it to the school district for their consideration and their planning. They have been aware of the project since they first came to the city with interest. And as always, they simply indicate that they're aware of the development. This facility, if there are school children, would attend the Eagle Glen Elementary School. Regarding access to the property and trip generation, a topic that came up during the Good Neighbor meeting and one of interest to everyone within the city. When the city reviews trip generation from a development, any development, we always reference the ITE manual, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They come up with a manual on trip generation for any use you can imagine, where they do numerous studies, many studies on the specific land use to determine what the peak demand would be for that specific use. And I say peak demand, it's peak hour demand. For an apartment community of this nature, it generates 0.39 trips per unit for that peak hour. It compares that a single-family home generates 1.01 trips. So apartments are considerably less trip generators than a single-family home development. And then if we look at commercial land use on the property, it's significantly lower than any commercial use. A standard retail store would be per 1,000 square foot, 2.7. Fast food restaurants, one of the highest trip generations in peak hour is almost 17 units, or trips per hour. So an apartment community, point being, is one of the lowest residential trip generators. I say that because then we look at, well, what impact will this have on Dean Avenue? Dean Avenue, of course, built as a minor arterial. It was designed to handle full development of all land uses at that time that went up and down and fed into Dean Avenue. We look at the maximum density when we look at a property. So this property was planned for commercial growth, commercial development. So an apartment community on this particular development has a much lower trip generation rate than a commercial development would be on Dean Avenue. So staff and our recent traffic study that looked at Dean Avenue indicates that Dean Avenue can easily support traffic generated by 300 apartments from this property. The rezoning application is the first step. If it does get approved by the council, they have to go through preliminary plat, which is when we take a little bit closer look at stormwater runoff, utility connections for the property. That was a big question when it came forward to the Good Neighbor meeting, is stormwater runoff. A lot of preliminary information available. You can see their concept plan, which is included in the packet, does call for some stormwater control. The existing pond up front on Dean Avenue remains, and they're constructing or plan to construct a detention basin on the east side of the property, which creates a very nice buffer between single-family homes and where the buildings would start for the development. The concept plan, again, also include elevations, which I included in your packet, proposed elevations for the building. Of note, I talked about the change for commercial. Staff is very cautious when we look at rezoning property, converting it from commercial to residential. Property's been zoned commercial since 2005. This is one of maybe the only property that I'm aware of that has had no interest in commercial development whatsoever. Nobody has come forward to the city, even after Sam's came in and Office Max and that. This property just doesn't generate the interest as commercial land. I included some information that our economic development director supplied to us, talking about the challenges of this site. Classifies the site as a third-tier commercial property because of its distance off of 58 Highway, and it's not visible with Office Max and Sam's Club blocking the developable area of this property. So it becomes what uses could go there. You start looking at it, and I think from staff's perspective, multifamily use, Class A apartment community is the perfect transitional use between commercial and single family. In the report, I talk about the percentage of single family, multifamily. We get a lot of talk about all we're seeing to be developing in Raymore is multifamily. You know, we're getting all these complexes with the lofts. We got the venue townhomes under construction. Currently, we're at 80% single family and 15% multifamily. When we take into account all the proposed multifamily, including this development this evening, and also balance that with all the single family that I talked about earlier that's coming in, if all that development occurs, we stay at 78% single family and 19% multifamily. So still that 80-20 balance that we've had for many, many years equates itself out, even with the multifamily developments that we've seen recently. With the rezoning, I'd like to state that the protection to the adjacent single family remains. A type A landscape buffer is required. Commercial to single family is also required for multifamily adjacent to residential. Significant buffer on the east side for Fox Haven residents. So, you know, I think 300 feet from their back property line all the way to where the first building would be on the development. South Metro, as always, looked at the application as part of their review. It does have 2 access points as shown on the conceptual plan, and they're comfortable with the proposed layout that was presented to them. Mr. Crass in the engineering division did submit a memorandum on the provision of facilities. There's water, sewer, storm sewer available to serve the property. Our planning commission did submit proposed findings of fact for your consideration. And at the Planning Commission meeting, staff did recommend approval of the rezoning, and the commission on July 6th did vote 8-0 to accept staff's proposed findings and forward this request for rezoning to the City Council with their recommendation of approval. The memorandum from Mr. Crass is included, as well as the minutes from the discussion. The Planning Commission had a detailed discussion on the project, as well as we did receive 1 correspondence from a resident on the project. I included the conceptual site plan. I didn't get into details about that. The applicant in their presentation could go over that, as well as the proposed building elevations. Chris Alexander and Garrett Linville representing the applicant team are here tonight. They will have a presentation. I will present it, broadcast it to your computers during the time they're speaking, so you will see it as well. That will conclude staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. Any questions of staff at this time? Yes, Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Cataract. Excellent presentation. I thought I recalled conversations about this project, that the trailhead and the parking lot, is that a part of this parcel? I don't see it as a part of this parcel because it's the southern piece. Would that be an MOU, or is that no longer a consideration?
It is part of the project. If you look at the conceptual plan, there's land area between Dean Avenue and the detention pond that's existing. And that is a location where the developer has, in concept, agreed to install a trailhead parking lot with access off their internal drive, their southern entrance, to probably a parking lot of 10, 12 parking spaces. It'll be a trailhead. It's really more included in when you get more to the preliminary development plan and the MOU. It's very conceptual at this stage.
Excellent. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify because the assumption was it'd be closer to the existing trailhead on the other side of Johnston Drive, so or within the vicinity of that. So thank you.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just clarify for me, in 16 years this has been zoned commercial and there's not been any activity, no interest at all for this property?
That's correct. No interest.
Several years ago, we did have another multifamily project that was considering that location, but went in another direction to another community. So, but no commercial. Anyone else? Okay, I would invite the applicant to step forward for your presentation. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Chris Alexander with Watermark Residential. I'm at 111 Monument Circle, Suite 1500, Indianapolis, Indiana. Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us here tonight. Appreciate it very much. It's been a pleasure working with your staff throughout the process. Just by way of introduction, I'm Chris Alexander, and as I said, I represent our Midwest region for Watermark, and I'm here with Garrett Linville. He'll speak here in a few minutes. Garrett's our development manager, and he'll be running the project on a day-to-day basis. What I wanted to do is maybe just give you a quick who is Watermark. I know I've spoken to a number of groups, but I thought I'd just give a quick 2-minute commercial on the company, who we are, and then give you a little bit of insight as to why Raymore for Watermark. We're certainly here to answer any other questions as well. Garrett will come up after me and maybe get into a little more detail on the site plan and just try to fill in any blanks that Jim did not do. I'm really not a very good... Okay, there we go. Okay. So Watermark Residential is based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and our parent company, Thompson Thrift, was founded in 1986. Our two founders that you can see there, Paul Thrift and John Thompson, really have built the company when they started it in '86. Over the next 20 years as a general contractor, a retail developer, and a residential for-rent developer. In 2008, Watermark was formed, and since then our focus, 50 projects later, has been on the development, construction, and management of Class A, market rate multifamily projects in 3 regions across the country. As I mentioned, I represent the Midwest region. Midwest is basically, our main cities are Pittsburgh, Michigan, state of Michigan, Indiana, our home state, Minnesota, and Kansas City. We also cover the West, primarily in Arizona and Colorado, and then the Southeast, where we're in Florida, the Carolinas, and Alabama and Arkansas. As I said, although we are based in Indiana, the majority of the work that we do is outside of our home state, but we really like the Kansas City market. We're putting the finishing touches on another project called The Element in North Kansas City, and so the market for us has been very good, and you might ask, why Raymore? For us, it checks all the boxes. First of all, obviously you had a great economic development project to mention here tonight, but it's a great job story. You know, within 30 minutes drive of Raymore, there's over 20,000 jobs. That's really kind of a radius of about 10 to 11 miles from our site. We love that. And really there's 2,500 employees and jobs within a 6-mile radius. So for us, that's always number one. We look at jobs and job growth. Household incomes are very strong within a 1, 3, and 5-mile radius. And you've got obviously strong single-family growth here. Great new single-family projects that have been developed and are being announced and developed here in the future. Good population growth, that's always a box checker for us. Excellent public schools. And from a location standpoint, we love the location next to Sam's. You've got available land there, obviously, which fits the project size that we want to do. But the walkable retail is very important to our residents. Strong thoroughfare system. We looked at the 2 interchange opportunities off of 49. We love that in terms of access. We think it fits very well. Our residents need to be able to get in and out and get to those jobs that I mentioned. And again, for Watermark, it just checks all the boxes, and we're really excited to be part of the community for sure. In terms of the project itself, here's, by the way, I forgot to mention, here's a map which shows some of the locations that we've done around the country, but specifically this project, it'll be 300 units, as Jim mentioned. 40% of the 300 will be 1-beds, 52 will be 2-beds, and 8% will be 3-beds. Average unit size for a 1-bed, 1-bath is 720 square feet. A 2-bed, 2-bath will be 1,112, and the 3-bed, 2-bath will be 1,300 square feet. Rents for a 1-bed will be $1,200, $1,560 for a 2-bed, and $1,700 for a 3-bed. So that just sort of gives you an idea of the scope of the units being provided, as well as the economics associated with it. The project will be a 3-story, we call it our classic, garden style typical. And any of you that have toured the Element, it'll be very similar to that in terms of style. Watermark will be the general contractor for this project, and we will hire local subs, as many as we can. And we'll also be the property manager of the project. We're a property manager nationally. We manage nearly 3,000 units. Our goal by 26 is to double that. And we already have, as I said, our project in Kansas City. It allows us to continue to build some mass on the property management side here in the marketplace, which we really like. So that's really it. I'm going to have Garrett come up and maybe just walk you through a little bit more on the site and maybe show you some images and what the interiors look like. But again, we're here to answer any questions when he's done as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chris. So for the record, my name is Garrett Linville. I'm at the same address as Chris at 111 Monument Circle, Suite 1500, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46204. So I'm going to go through a bit of the project specifics as well as the product specifics that we're looking to bring to Raymore. So this is what we call our classic product, which is our 3-story garden-style apartment product. And so here's an example picture. And so we've done this product numerous times across the country, and they're all Class A, they're all luxury. They all feature similar architectural elements, while we do fit it specifically to the vernacular of the city, and we have an architect custom look at every project as we go through them. So I'm going to flip through a few pictures here of just some other examples. So to talk a bit about some of the interior features, our interiors all feature stainless steel appliances, modern plumbing fixtures, tiled showers and glass doors, quartz or granite countertops, 9-foot ceilings everywhere, large windows, full-size washer and dryers, spacious floor plans, and we do custom look at all of these floor plans before they're built. Here's a few pictures of a few of our existing projects. Again, these are actual pictures and not renderings, so you could go tour these today if you'd like to. Beyond that, to talk a little bit about some of the community features, we have 24/7 fitness and maintenance. The fitness center is state-of-the-art. You would not need a full gym membership. You have just about everything you need in there. We have valet trash. We actually have a service that comes to your door and takes your trash away, so you're not walking across the apartment complex to go drop your trash off at a dumpster. They come to your door between certain hours every day and remove that trash for you. Beyond that, we have other things such as bike repair shops, dog washes, dog parks, courtyards with water features and extra landscaping, alongside a resort-style pool with cabanas, yard games, grill structures, fire pits, all the bells and whistles of a luxury apartment project. Flip through a few pictures here as well of some of our communities and clubhouses. So we've taken a look at what we believe our example rendering would look like for this project. And after working back and forth with staff and Planning Commission, this is what we've come up with. It features similarities to our project in North KC. However, we have upgraded the stone. We've added a few more architectural features, as well as chimneys on the side to further increase the variability of the architectural elements. And here's just a different color scheme. Here is our conceptual site plan. To walk you through it a bit, as Chris mentioned, there are 300 units shown on this plan. They're roughly a 40% one-bed, 50% two-bed, 10% three-bed mix. We're showing roughly 100 detached garages, along with detention on the east side, as well as the west side. As mentioned, we have conceptually agreed to a trailhead on the western side of the property here that would help connect all the residents and those to the north to the trailhead to the south, or to the trail to the south, I should say. Up here in the northwest, you have the 7,000 to 10,000 square foot clubhouse, along with the resort-style pool area that will have all the cabanas and everything that I had mentioned previously. And then you will see the apartment buildings located all across the site. Take any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Anybody have any questions of the developer? Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, sir. Great presentation. Thank you for the presentation. I had a question for Chris. You had a comment earlier that you said that one of the reasons you chose here was because of our strong single-family growth. Just interested how that correlates to possibilities in multifamily.
Yeah, so we look at the values, and typically when the values rise, that correlates obviously with income. That tends to trend with apartment rents.
For the Class A?
For Class A.
Class A rates. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen. If there are no more comments, the public hearing is open at this time. I would entertain anyone from the community that wishes to address the council at this time about the project or the rezoning. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. One more time, anybody from the public? And I see no one coming forward, so I will close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Townsend?
Thank you. I was thinking deep in thought. I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3643, rezoning of Watermark.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3643. Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3644 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3644 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from R1P, Single Family Residential Planned District, to PUD, Planned Unit Development District, a 135-acre tract of land located south of Hubach Hill Road, east of Brook Parkway in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. This item also requires a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Prior to the staff report and calling on Mr. Cataret, I would point out to the council that you probably noted we had to make a change to the agenda. Scribner's error on this particular agenda item had the title correct and all the background information correct, and of course all the packet materials are accurate, but the blurb, which is again a Scribner's issue, was incorrect for this particular item. That's been corrected in front of the council tonight, was also posted again today. With that, I will call on Mr. Cataret to make a staff report on this particular agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The request before you at this time was filed by Brad Kemp. He represents Clayton Properties Group Incorporated. The request this evening is to reclassify the zoning of a 135-acre tract from its current R1P, single-family plan zoning designation, to our PUD, our planned unit development zoning designation. This 135 acres located on the south side of Hubach Hill Road, east of Brook Parkway and the Prairie of the Good Ranch subdivision. This tract of land was formerly described as the estates of the Good Ranch development. For our surrounding zoning, the property directly to the north side of Hubach Hill Road is in unincorporated Cass County, and the property to the east is in unincorporated Cass County. To the south, we have part of the Good Ranch property still zoned agricultural, and to the west, the Prairie View of the Good Ranch is zoned R1P. This property has been designated as low-density residential in our growth management plan. And our transportation plan identifies and classifies Hubach Hill Road as a minor arterial and Brook Parkway as a minor collector. The reclassification of zoning does require a public hearing advertised for this evening. Want to enter into the record the notices that were sent to all of the adjoining property owners. Notice of publication in the Journal, our Unified Development Code, the application that was submitted, our growth management plan, and the staff report. The request for the planned unit development zoning on this property is really to allow some flexibility in the design of the development. The PUD establishes lot width, lot size, side yard, building setbacks, and lot coverage standards. It allows for a mixture of single-family homes in what is being called the Sendera subdivision. A reclassification to PUD does require the submittal of a concurrent preliminary plan. So unlike the Watermark project, this development has both the rezoning and preliminary plan combined in the application. The subject property was reclassified from agricultural to its current R1P back in 2006. Shortly thereafter is when Bob Jackson brought forward the estates of the Good Ranch developments. That preliminary plat remains valid today. There were a total of 343 lots as part of that development, and the subdivision really had two distinct areas. The west side of the property had, at the time, were considered narrower, smaller lots for villas, and the east side were the standard R1 size lots. Also with this property, in 2008, council approved the inclusion of this tract of land in the Hubach Hill North Cass Parkway Community Improvement District. So there is special assessments assigned to development in this property as well as Prairie View to the west that helps to pay back costs associated with the improvements to Hubach Hill Road. This rezoning required the Good Neighbor meeting held back on June 16th. We had 18 people attend that meeting. Of note is that we identified 3 of the residents at that meeting as city residents. The meeting by far was attended by the Dutchman Acre folks who are directly north of the property and not within the city of Raymore city limits. All the questions and responses that evening provided in your staff report this evening. Again, in talking with the developer when they first came forward on the zoning classifications, we knew they wanted adjustments to the R1P. Decided that the PUD zoning classification was really the best fit for this property. They were coming in with what they're referred to as 3 different geographic areas in the subdivision, very distinct areas with different lot sizes, different style as far as homes, size of homes, price point of homes, and felt that going with the PUD, the planned unit development layout, kind of provides those distinct areas where those products will be allowed to be, and felt that provided the some safety, if you would, to individuals. You kind of get what you see, that they talk about these products and where they'll be, they're limited to that location under the PUD. I mentioned the property as part of the Good Ranch Master Plan community. It's been since 1994. And again, this property designated for low-density residential development, which is classified as up to 4 units an acre. I identified the preliminary plan that I submitted. Again, any modifications to that plan you see tonight where they have the different product areas would require resubmittal to go back through the process. We allow minor, very minor adjustments to that, but the location of the streets and layout does have to remain the same. Identified in a table in your staff report, we have various subdivisions that have either R1P variations or our PUD zoning, and what the different lot sizes, what the different setbacks would be for those developments and density. Sendera, again, proposed 4,800 square foot minimum lot size. That's for the one product area with 40-foot lot widths. Comparison, and the closest comparison would be our Eastbrook subdivision in Creekmore under construction, which is 40-foot lot widths, a little bit smaller lot size at 4,500 square foot. I did also include the table that identifies what the current standards are of the R1P zoning and what's proposed under the PUD, again looking to adjust for that one specific area, the minimum lot size and lot area and lot width. Again, when you get to on the east side of the development, they exceed the R1 requirements as far as the lot area. So they're trying to create that balance of different lot sizes, different product types. And identified that, the 3 distinct geographic areas in the report as well. This property is within the Water District number 10 service area, and they've been in correspondence with the district on provision of water to the property. And this plan also was submitted to the school district. Of course, they're aware of the estates development for many years, so they've been planning on single-family development on this property for some time. Our code does require what's called subdivision adjacency when you have new developments coming in adjacent to existing subdivisions. All the requirements of our code for this subdivision have been met. They do have buffer area surrounding the property along Hubach Hill Road and Brook Parkway. I mentioned Hubach Hill Road, the CID, the road was approved back to minor arterial standards back in 2010. And again, as I mentioned with Dean Avenue, when the design was happening for Hubach Hill Road, it took into account what the maximum density would be allowed for these undeveloped tracts that would feed into Hubach Hill Road. The density of this subdivision is set at 3.17 acres under the proposed number of units they have. And again, we plan for 4 units an acre. So Hubach Hill Road is designed and can easily handle, again, the development and the trip generated from this development. The Good Ranch Master Development Agreement does apply. That is regards to stream buffer protection, which they are accommodating stream buffer protections on their property. And the MOU for Good Ranch did discuss parkland dedication. So there's no public parkland as part of this development. The public parkland in the Good Ranch is a 137-acre piece of property to be deeded to the city just directly to the southwest of this property, basically at the corner of Brook Parkway and North Cass Parkway. But they do have a total of 27% of this site is left as open space. So they have floodplain on the property. They have a lot of common area on the property. So almost close to a third of it is an open space. In the center of the development, and I know the applicants will talk about this, they have a strong amenity package, clubhouse, pool, as well as play fields, sport courts, et cetera. They'll have a trail network throughout the development in their open spaces. An MOU has been prepared, which outlines all the requirements of the city and of the developer and the responsibilities of both parties moving forward. Our engineering division did submit a memorandum on the provision of facilities. There is adequate sewer to serve the property, and again, the Water District has been aware of this development and is prepared to serve. Planning Commission, when they considered this rezoning, did submit proposed findings of fact for your consideration. And it was the commission at their July 20th meeting, public hearing, they did vote 5-4 to accept the staff proposed findings and forward this request for rezoning to the city council with a recommendation of approval. Again, the engineering memorandum is included as well as the MOU for this property that's been signed by the applicant. And the meeting minutes, again, detailed discussion at the commission level on their review of the application and recommendation that's submitted to you this evening. I know Tiffany, Tiffany Ford with Summit Custom Homes is here this evening to represent the applicant as well as their project engineer, Doug Ubin. Again, when they come up to speak, they have a brief presentation. I'll broadcast that to your computers, so you will see what they're presenting. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Jim. I would invite the applicant to step forward now. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Doug Oven with Phelps Engineering. As Jim mentioned, with me tonight here is Tiffany Ford with Summit Homes. So the applicant is Clayton Properties. But they're doing business as Summit Custom Homes. That's, I think, probably what everybody's more familiar with. Being the Kansas City area, Summit Custom Homes is who the applicant is representing here tonight. So, like I said, with me is Tiffany Ford. Jim. Okay. Go ahead to the next. So I'll try not to hit on too many of the things that Jim mentioned on kind of traffic, how it compares to what was approved with the surrounding street network and some of the density and stuff, but focus maybe more on the plan itself and kind of where the product areas are. So like Jim mentioned, 430 lots, 3.2 density units per acre on 135 acres. So we got 3 product types. We call them A, B, C on the plan. A being pretty much the eastern half of the plan, product B being in the southwest corner, and product C kind of being up in the northwest corner. So going back to product A, that's the 70-foot lots. So when we say 70-foot lots, we're talking about what's the width of the lot at the build line. So that's typically what you get with a 3-car garage, single-family home, what that generates. And there are 160 of those lots. So moving then to product B in the southwest corner is the 40-foot lots, 40-foot wide. There's 160 of those lots. And then in the product C in the northwest corner, there's 110 of the 48-foot lots. So combined, that makes the 430 that make up the site. So one other thing kind of to mention when you look at the layout here, you see the amenity centers centralized between all 3 products, so it creates a good balance. Everybody, no matter what product type they are, has pretty good access to the amenity center, centrally located. I think it's a great layout with how this comes together. So like Jim mentioned, I'll just hit on it real briefly with the traffic. You know, this was approved at 4.0 units per acre when it was originally, when Hubach Hill Road and the surrounding street network was designed. We're coming in at 3.2, so therefore the surrounding street network is set up for this development. To touch quickly on stormwater detention, you have on the east side of the site, you see the pond and some cascading ponds. That even goes back to the original Good Ranch development and the improvement agreement that was set up with that. So we're continuing that forward using those water features on the east side. And then even go back to the Good Ranch there on the other side. What would have been Cass County Parkway, kind of southwest where Jim's pointing with his hand there, is an off-site detention basin that was set up with the Good Ranch. There's an existing detention easement over there, so we'll be making improvements to that pond over there to provide detention for this as well. All drainage on the site goes north to south, so there's no drainage, going to any of the developed communities on either side. It's all going towards the undeveloped, towards the south, and towards the creek that you see kind of at the southeast portion of the site there. Kind of just to touch quick on the amenities, Tiffany's going to go into a little more depth on the exact package. You can go ahead and go back, Jim. Yeah, there you go. We got a clubhouse in the middle, sports courts, play areas, pool, playing fields, community garden. The whole package there is 3 acres, which for a development of this size is pretty substantial amenity package. So it'll be a great feature for the neighborhood. Should really help generate sales. Going back to the site plan, you also have a good sidewalk and trail system around it. You have an 8-foot path that goes all the way along Hebok Hill Road. Then along Brook Parkway to the west, you have a 5-foot sidewalk on our side, on the east side of the road. And then on the south, it's hard to see on the plan here, but those lots that kind of back up to the southwest property line, there's a trail, goes all the way along the back side of those lots. You can kind of see it, the skinny line there coming up along the floodplain. We'll follow the floodplain and come up towards the amenity center, so you've got a good trail system through the neighborhood as well. As far as landscaping, buffers along Hebok Hill Road, you have a 40-foot landscape buffer. So within that landscape buffer, we'll be putting berms, landscaping in order to screen the houses from the residents to the north. Same thing along Brook Parkway. There's a 30-foot buffer along Brook Parkway for landscaping, so we'll do any berming, landscaping we can there to help buffer that as well. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Tiffany to give you a little more information on the exact architectural style that you'll see in this development of Sendera.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Tiffany Ford with Clayton Properties Group with Summit Homes, address 120 Southeast 30th Street, Lee Summit, Missouri. Thank you guys for having us here tonight.
Tiffany, could you get closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Jim and Doug did a great job of explaining the project, so I just have a couple things to add here. Summit Homes wants this to be a destination, a community that offers a product for people in all phases of their home buying life cycle. So you'll have, different options for everyone. And we really want this to have a feel that's different than just your average home. That we've come up with this concept of Sendera with the walking paths throughout, and to have this modern desert community feel. We also plan to have all of the phases, or each of the product types, go in at the first phase with the amenity center, so that there are all of those options available from the very beginning, and not having to wait for future phases for an amenity or for this size lot or other size lot. In our first product A, the different plan offerings that will be available are ranch, story and a halves, reverse story and a halves, and 2-story homes. And these floor plans will range in square footage from 1,600 to 2,600 square feet, and they will also have optional finished basements that could add an additional 600 to 1,000 square feet to the home size. The current price range for these homes is $400,000 to $700,000. You'll see the conceptual renderings of these houses right now. This is a product that we have been building, but we wanted to add a new modern elevation for this community based on our market studies of what people are looking for. The next product, which is in the southwestern corner, has the same floor plan options as far as ranch, story and a half, 2-story, reverse story and a half. The square footage on these is standard at 1,250 to 1,850, and these would also have an optional finished basement. The current price range for these type of homes would be $300,000 to $450,000. And then the last product type would be a maintenance provided section, and have the same ranch, story and a half, 2-story floor plans available, with 1,400 to 2,200 square feet. And these would also have an optional finished basement with a current price range of $300,000 to $450,000. And then, as it's already been discussed, we do plan to have an expansive clubhouse here. It's in the design stage for interior features at this point, but sports courts, playing areas, pools, hammock garden, community garden with a lot of walkability. This is purposefully in the middle of the community, so people can walk it to the amenity site as easily as possible. And then just a few elevations of the clubhouse features. And then the standard pool size that we build, what the hammock garden might look like, and those sports courts. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Tiffany. Anyone have any questions of the applicant or staff at this time? Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm the one that wants to talk a lot tonight. Mr. Ketter, I had a general question regarding just development, but this particular project and the smaller lots. In your professional opinion, and as you engage with others in the area and other developers, what is driving the smaller lots? You know, particularly when it comes to Raymore, has word gotten out that we're Wild Wild West and we're just allowing smaller lots? Is it, you know, the market? You know, what is the feel in your opinion?
What we're seeing as planners in communities similar to Raymore, certainly market-driven. The demand is there for different options, smaller footprints on smaller lots. I think that's evident with what we've already seen with the Eastbrook development here in Raymore. The only development I can remember where every lot has a home under construction within 6 months of when it was approved. They are building on every lot currently in there, and we already have residents living in there. The demand is there. They're already working on phase 2 in Raymore. But you're seeing this mixture of uses of product types, if you would, as subdivisions becoming more common. We're seeing it in just the applications we've seen recently here in Raymore, but certainly that is pronounced in communities throughout the Midwest area. I think it's just changing demand. The home cost allows them to keep the home cost slightly down from what it would be on a larger 70 or 80 foot lot, and so try to provide housing at price points for everyone.
Okay, thank you, because this is trending in what we've seen come across our desk, or the dais, excuse me. So I just was curious to get a little more. I've asked it before. I just want to again ask, you know, to re-educate myself and stay informed on, you know, even though this project is not exclusively smaller lots, it has a mix, as you said, and interesting to hear that for the smaller lots, it looks like there's maintenance provided that's being proposed. That's pretty outstanding with respect to that. So thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Holman.
Yeah, I wanted to dovetail off of a point that Councilmember Townsend made. So it would appear to me, we hear the complaints from some people. They're just trying to jam as many houses as they can in the smallest space that they can. But if they really wanted to do that, they probably could have gone with R1.5 here, right? I mean, the PUD, they're adding a lot of amenities that is really in line for the end user, the homeowner, as well as for the benefit of the entire city. Because with these kinds of amenities, it takes some pressure off of our parks system because they have some stuff right there within their neighborhood. Is that a correct assumption?
That is correct, and one of the things we like with the PUD is it gives flexibility, but it also gives you the amenity package and the ability to, again, get what you see. So as you're seeing this in front of you in these different locations, that's where the products will be at without coming back in front of council. So we know standard zoning is, as long as they meet the box, you can build anything within that parameter. The PUD is more restrictive. It's odd to say more flexible and more restrictive in the same sentence, but it is true, and this is a good example of that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I kind of ducktail again off that. What I see here is you have the bigger homes, the price range higher, but that's what people look for. Then the next one, the next section, they're a little smaller, but the price range is a little bit lower, but they're bigger. But then you get to the one on the northwest, which again maintenance free. So you give a taste of everything for people who want a diversity on their financing, where they want to buy, where they want to live, and they have their package in the middle there with the pools and amenities. So it's a great community resource for different people for different sizes who they want. It's not all locked down to one area. Again, I think they had basements in these, and they have an option to be finished if they choose, which is good. Now you got all your square footage upstairs, and a lot of square footage from what I've seen here. And somebody say even the maintenance, and then you have an optional basement you can finish also, which makes it very nice. So, thank you.
Anyone else? As a public hearing is open at this time, and this particular project abuts both incorporated and unincorporated areas of our community, so I would entertain any citizen from the city of Raymore to please step forward from the incorporated area of Raymore. If they wish to speak to this project, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Everyone will get a chance to communicate their position with the council. But we're going to start with the incorporated area of Raymore first, residents.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much.
Name and address for the record.
My name is Gary Graves. I am building the first house in Prairie View, the Good Ranch. The address of that house will be 1309 Virginia Place. So I am the adjacent subdivision. So that's part of my interest in following these proceedings. I've been to both of the Good Neighbor meetings. There's been a lot of good things discussed, pro and con on this. I'm not anti-development. I'm not anti-business. I think anybody has a right to secede or fail in this country as they see fit. I just wanted to make one comment. I think this is about vision. There's been a lot of comparison made going forward with this in comparison to what has already been approved over on Madison and the high-density housing over there, as part of that. And I guess if you look at that as the precipice, then approving something on this scale would be right in the middle of the slippery slope, heading down toward what all future developments of single-family development in the city of Raymore could possibly look like. And it would just have to be a decision on your part as far as what kind of vision, long range, you would like for the city of Raymore. I have my property. I'm going to live there. I don't live in this subdivision. I'm going to be happy to live in Raymore. I'm going to retire here. But again, as I say, I think mainly this boils down to vision and allowing something of this density on this scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to comment at this time? Anyone from the unincorporated area of Raymore or the surrounding community care to state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Lori Gray. I live at 914 West Hubach Hill Road. So I live directly northeast of the entrance to the east side of, towards the highway. We actually bought our property 4 years ago. So it was an empty acreage lot that we chose to build on. Our plan was to retire there. So we've lived in Cumberland Hills. We lived in Stonegate. So we've lived in Raymore the last 20 years in the city. So we've paid city taxes. We've paid city taxes on 2 homes and got, I don't know, probably 10 to 12 vehicles over that 20-year time period. So we've paid city taxes. When we bought this property, it was nothing to do to get out of the city. I mean, it wasn't because we didn't want to avoid city taxes. We wanted to get out of the city. We wanted to live on an acreage lot. We wanted our neighbors at a long distance. We had no idea that they were going to be building this subdivision potentially with 430 homes. It's very disappointing. I have a beautiful view out the front porch of my home when I look south. I'm now going to be looking at 430 homes. We've talked about the traffic on that road. Nobody seems to be concerned about it. But I don't think that anybody in this room, except for myself, live on that road. I live on that road. There's a lot of traffic on that road. There's a lot of noise. We were lucky when we built our home that our builder did a great job insulating our home. So we, inside our home, honestly don't hear much traffic because our builder went the extra mile to make sure that we had extra insulation so we would not hear that. I promise you that these homes that they're building will hear that traffic unless Summit Homes decides to do something to do extra insulation. My request, which my ask of them would be to build some type of barrier. I doubt those people want to look in the front of my home, and I guarantee you I don't want to look in their homes. My neighbor to the west of me will have every single car that comes out of that house, their headlights going directly into the front of their house. I don't know exactly what the front of their house is located at, but if that was my home, it would be coming directly into my living room every single night. I doubt that when they built that property, they've lived there way longer than I have. I mean, I would say plus of 15 years. I doubt when they bought that home that they thought they would have cars shining their headlights. So I would ask of Summit Homes to try to do something to buffer us so that we don't have, I mean, I doubt that any of you have headlights shining in the front of your property every night. I don't want that. I don't really want to move from that property. That was my intention, was to retire there. So, we've talked about the traffic, we talked about the maintenance of that road. If any of you have driven that road down towards Sunset, the road is already breaking away right now. I do believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I do believe that is county maintenance property, which Summit Homes could care less, right? They're building property. They don't care what happens to the road in front of them. And if the city is not maintaining that road, I guess the city doesn't care either, but we all drive that road. That road goes to the high school. There's a lot of, high school kids that will be driving that road. We drive that road every single day. We've asked about the traffic plan. That was a plan in January of 2010. That's 11 years old. And in that plan, it does talk about that, but it says, while adequate for prioritizing improvements, longer-term traffic needs need to be considered. We've brought that up several times. Nobody's considering. It's fine. That road can handle 12,000 cars a day. I've been told that by 3 different people. That's a lot of vehicles, 12,000 cars a day. You figure there's 430 houses going in there, plus 86 down the street. Figure 2 cars apiece. That's a lot of cars. And that's only 2, that's only if you're figuring 2. I have 5 vehicles in my home. I mean, these houses could easily have that if they have teenage drivers. So I think that road maintenance is a big concern. They're trying to promote these homes as starter homes. I don't know about any of you, but my first home was not $300,000. And I have a 20-something kid, and I can tell you, he has a good job and he can't afford a $300,000 home. Those 20-something kids don't want to live out here. It's not because there's anything against Raymore. My son grew up here. He moved here when he was 9 months old. He lived here till he was 24. They don't want to live out here because we don't have what the 20-something crowd wants. They want to be able to walk to go get something to eat. They want to be able to walk to go to a restaurant. We don't have that out here. But that's not what Raymore was promoted upon. So I disagree with their mentality of first-time home buyers. That's just not a thing. So I just don't think it's very conducive to what they are presenting it. I have a large concern that they are going to build these homes at the lower ends of the square footage. What's stopping them from doing that? So they're going to say that they're building these 300 to 700,000, but what stops them from building them all at the lower range scale? So you have a whole subdivision of $300,000 homes and none of the upper side. So that now starts impacting my property value because I live across the street from that. So anyway, thank you for listening. Those are my concerns.
No, thank you for your comments. Would the applicant care to counter any of those particular issues?
I guess I'll touch on one and then have Tiffany touch on some of the others. So just to kind of touch on the headlight situation going across the street. So going back to my presentation where we talked about the landscape buffer and the landscape track, so we'll take extra attention at the end of the cul-de-sacs to put a denser landscape buffer at the end of the cul-de-sac, so as cars come up the cul-de-sac, they won't shine their headlights across the street to the neighbors. The plan also works out just pretty well the way you have the cul-de-sacs going up that way, and then you have, I guess not to deal with the headlights, but just the view from the neighbors. We feel like it's a good layout with, if you, I don't know if you can get back to the site plan, Jim. No, okay.
We still have it up.
That's all right.
Or I have it up on
You have it
mine.
up, okay. All the houses along Hubach Hill, you see the side of the house. You're not looking at the back of people's yards and all their playground equipment and all that. So we feel like it's a good layout towards the neighbors to the north. You look at the side, you're looking at the good part of their house and not what ends up going in people's backyards. So I'll turn it over to Tiffany now to talk about maybe some of the other points from that.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify a couple things. First, to where this has been effective, Summit is doing these product lines with this mix in Overland Park and Lee Summit and Blue Springs and in Raymore. And as has been mentioned, these are selling faster than the larger lots that they come online and they're sold out within a few weeks or a few months. That's the it's a very sought after product right now. As far as the square footage minimums, we do want to have people have the options of different variety of square footages, but we do not want to have a community of all of the same floor plans right next to each other. We do practice that no house with the same elevation or floor plan be, within a block of 6 of that other. So with these product B and C, we typically go in and master plan that layout and know exactly what floor plan is going on which lot to have a great variety throughout those entire product sections, and there's not any redundancy. We have done the math on our other developments as well, and while we have plans that are 1,400 and we have plans that are 2,300 square feet, that the average of those, when we do plan that out without a finished basement, is usually between 1,800 and 1,900 square feet. So yes, there are some smaller, but there are some bigger, and some people finish basements. And that is market driven, and we want there to be a variety through the community, not just one cookie cutter, copy and paste it over and over.
So Tiffany, I have a question. So people seem to think that all of these are going to be spec homes. What percentage are actually planned between the builder and the owner for purposes of building that particular location?
We decide what plan will go on each lot, and then they are built in a sequencing, but they're mostly at a certain stage transferred from that spec, or this is the plan for the lot, to a build job. In one of our communities that has 24 homes, within 6 months, I believe we had 50% of them under contract. So yes, they all started as spec, but within very short period, they had all transferred from a spec to a build job where people are making their selections and have decided this is the plan I want and this is the lot I want.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Abdelgawad.
I had a similar question to that. In shopping for homes, I know I've gone into some areas where they kind of say, here are the choices for your floor plan and which lot do you want? And so it's actually the buyer who says, I want this plan on this lot, so that's market driven, the buyer's saying which one they want on which lot. It sounds like you're going to have a plan to have a variety. So if I want this house, I can only choose from these lots.
It will be both, actually. So that product A is going to be more your traditional, you have a plat map and you decide which house fits on which lot, and you can kind of have a more custom experience. The products B and C, because of the size of the lots and of all things to take into account on the building side, it works better to build in a sequence down the street, and so it takes a little bit more planning than just saying pick your house and pick your lot.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to address the council at this time? If not, I'll close the public hearing at this time and entertain any further discussion or questions of staff. But normally we move into disposing of this item. So I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item at this time. Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3644, rezoning of Sendera.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. The motion has been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3644. Any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have a quick question, if that's okay. I was just curious, just for my information, and kind of it came out of the question about traffic count, and this is really putting you on the spot, maybe, Jim, so if you don't know and we need to talk about it next time, that's fine. What is the current traffic count down there? And just so we could kind of compare how that might change, what kind of increase we'll see?
Probably not more than about 2,000 vehicles a day.
We're expecting with these two developments for that to increase to
maybe another 800.
Anyone else have any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Just one thing, it's easy to get lost in these. This is a rezoning request, and we get lots of details thrown at us that really are more apropos to preliminary plat, which is the next step. It's good information for us to have to kind of figure out the whole package, but remember, this is already R1P zoned, and it's simply a request for a zoning change from R1P to PUD. Correct, sir?
That is correct. The only point of clarification is the preliminary plat is included with this request.
Understood.
So the
And-
plan you have in your packet is their preliminary.
Okay, and then the things to be considered are outlined for us by due process. There are 10 items outlined in our report, and those are the only items for us to consider, not vision, not square footage size. We can take those comments into account. But by our own procedures, these are the things that we are to look at to make a administrative decision on this request. Is that correct?
That's correct. Those are your findings of fact.
Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion? Mr. Townsend.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just also to Mr. Holman's point, so absent the PUD, if it was not a PUD, the applicant could come under the existing zoning and say, this is what we're going to build, and beyond that, we would not have seen this with this level of detail tonight?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3645 by title only?
First reading of Bill 3645 by title only, an ordinance pursuant to Section 67.110 of the revised statutes of Missouri levying general and special taxes in the city of Raymore, Missouri for the year 2021.
Thank you. This item also requires a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Ms. Williams to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening for your consideration is the 2021 tax levy. Each year, the city is required by the state auditor's office to calculate and set our tax levy. This requirement must be recorded with the county clerk no later than September 1st. In odd-numbered years, the assessor's office assesses properties to account for changes in value. In the even-numbered years, the assessed valuation may increase based upon new construction. The basic theory of the Hancock Amendment is that the city revenue from property tax in the general fund and the park fund should be revenue neutral from year to year for non-growth related increases in assessments. There is an allowance for inflation, and this year that rate is 1.4%, and it's provided by the state auditor. This means that typically as assessments from non-growth increase, then the levy decreases. The opposite is true when assessed values decrease. The general fund tax levy for 2021 is calculated to be 41 58 per $100 of assessed valuation. That's 0.4158. The park fund levy is calculated to be 11 19 per 100 assessed valuation, or 0.1119. The debt service levy is the same as last year at 71 70 per $100 of assessed valuation. That's 0.7170. The total city tax levy is recommended to be 1.2447. That's $1.2447 in total. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Anyone have any questions?
Your Honor.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Fearborn.
And of course, each year, you know, this particular item is of a great deal of interest to me. Each year, I promise you all I'm going to actually bring my mill coin, and I always forget to do that tonight because normally these are expressed in mills. Ms. Williams does an excellent job of translating those back into cents and hundredths of a cent. We did hand out for the council's interest this evening the last 21 years of the levy. Wanted to point out particularly 2004 and 2005 to the council. Each year, it is suggested to the city manager and staff that the overall levy, as Ms. Williams indicated this year, is going to be 1.2447. That is with the operational funds that are subject to the Hancock Amendment both being lowered from last year. Our assessed valuation went up enough. My water balance analogy every year, the levy goes down in those. However, there is a different method for computing the debt service portion of this, the 7170. We are allowed to collect as much in the debt service levy as it would take to not only pay debt service this year, but pay debt service next year in the event of a catastrophe. 7170 does not do that. What could we collect in the debt service levy?
1.0404.
That is a voluntary rollback on the part of the city. The operational funds are rolled back according to Hancock. That is a requirement, but we could be collecting that much. We are voluntarily rolling it back to 7170. Each year it's suggested as well to us, as you see in years 2004 and 2005, would point out that the overall levy remained the same at 1.3068. We were required from 2004 to 2005 to roll back the general fund and roll back the park fund. What we did in those rollback years is we increased the debt service levy, you will note, from 7100 to 7170. I will sit here tonight and publicly promise the public and the council, as city manager, I would never recommend that to you. I feel that that is breaking faith with the voters. We tell the voters our debt service levy, and I'm always very careful about this, this is a no tax increase debt service levy. Could we say the overall levy didn't increase in that year? Yes, but in fact, we increased the debt service levy to an artificial amount based on the rollback in the other two levies that were required. I will not do that to the council, and you will see in every other year as we have slowly had both voluntary and operational, necessary, and required rollbacks in the levy, that we have never attempted to do that with our public, and as long as I'm sitting here, we never will. That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Any questions of Ms. Williams or Mr. Fearborn? Thank you very much. As the public hearing is open at this time, I would entertain any comments from anyone from the public to please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Apparently, our new residents are good with the tax levy, too. So, all right. Well, we will. I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to close the public hearing. Sorry. Public hearing is closed. Or did I already say that? I don't think I did. I'll hit that little thingy and make it official. All right. Mr. Townsend.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3645, setting of the 2021 tax levy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3645. Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson? Absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Will Scherzer?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. That concludes new business. I will now move on to public comments. Again, I'll open the floor to public comments. Anyone wishing to address the council, step forward. I don't see too many public left, so we'll move on to the mayor council communication. Who wants to go first tonight? Raise your hand real quick. Mr. Holman, okay, you go first.
Thanks, sir. I apologize for my my tardiness coming in a few minutes late tonight. Just not on my game. And I apologize to Mr. Cataret. I had forgotten the element of PUD combining rezoning and preliminary plat. It's been a number of years since I've had the constant education on your part, or Mr. Zers or Mr. Wilders, on how those things change just a little bit. My point being that some of the objections brought up were really not germane to what we are to consider. We can certainly listen to those comments, but specific and individual complaints about square footage, for example, I don't know what difference that would make, but that's not part of the packet. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Exciting news from Economic Development tonight. Thanks for sharing that. We've all been waiting for that big announcement, but happy to hear we're going to have sounds like a great business moving in and starting out that development down there. Just a quick kudos to Chief. The Guns and Hoses really was an awesome event. I told my husband I hate watching people fight, but I had fun anyway. So it must have been good. And then just quickly reminding everyone to stop by the farmers market tomorrow for the big celebration. I think it'll be lots of fun.
Good point.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I've used my allocations tonight. I have nothing
Oh,
further.
that's okay. Reg, go ahead.
I'm good, sir.
You're
Thank you.
good? All right. Mr. Circo.
Real quick, just another thank you, Mr. Fairborn, for your dedication to the city, to your job, to everything you do. When you talk about your sincerity, which is there all the time for the city, when we look at this type of levies, how hard you work to keep that down when you could go higher, but we try to keep it, the tax bases where we could keep it for the people of Raymore, and so we can grow. And the PUD was a good choice, to shut that rezoning, because we could have got hung into another zoning that we couldn't do much with. So that was a good way to push it, and I think the PUD is a great thought. Thank you.
Ms. Will Scherzer, you're there with us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you have any comments?
I do, yes, thank you. I wanted to say thank you to the city staff for organizing the tour of the Watermark property. It was extremely helpful in being able to envision what the Watermark property would look like and what they would be able to provide for our community. I'm very excited about the economic development that we have, the Southern Glazers, I believe it is, coming in. I'm excited to see how they will interact with our community and how many jobs they'll bring. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I wanted to say when I moved here in the 90s, I remember I wasn't married yet, but we were getting married, and we're like, where do people buy liquor at in this town? And I guess it was the grocery store. That was the only place, as far as I knew. It's kind of ironic with our new tenant, but I don't think that should change the number of liquor stores we have in town, though. On a very serious note, a good friend of mine, Joe O'Neill, has been teaching here for 23 years, math teacher, and his mom passed away today. So if you see me at his house, it's because I'm feeding his cat. But definitely want to have him in mind, because I've tried to get him to volunteer for some commissions, but maybe in a few years when he retires, I'll work on him again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for not letting me go right after Mr. Holman. Chief, you have a big heart. Thank you for all you do. I know you had a lot of work putting that together, and you take it very seriously, but great job. Let me know how that went, too, by the way, when you know. I'd like to thank city staff, too, about the field trip we did, Mr. Fairborn, Mr. Carteret, and Mr. Gress. It was so good to go out there, and I used to do site visits when I was selling imaging equipment, and customers always said, you're not going to take us somewhere that's not impressive. But getting to talk to the people, that is what's impressive. And you give us an opportunity to talk to those people that manage that and really pick their brain. And I get more out of that. I could probably do that with a phone call, because I knew you weren't going to take us to look at someplace bad, and I was very impressed. Also, you know, as our communities are changing, I just wonder 150 years ago when Raymore plotted and became a city, the farmer went, oh no, they're going to carve this thing up, and there's going to be tiny lots on all these farms, and you know, and that's how it goes. And cities change and they adapt, and things change and markets change. But I do think that what we do that kind of protects us is these PUDs. You know, in the past they didn't do that, and so a subdevelopment would start, somebody would be ready to go and, you know, have everything, and then they would kind of fizzle out, and then they would fire sell all the lots, they'd come in and do something, and people have gotten kind of burnt by that. And I think there needs to be more education on how these planned unit developments are put together and why they're put together that way and how they're managed. You know, I work on Skyview, and people talk about that. Well, Skyview wouldn't go in today. That would be a PUD. It would go in. It would have those wouldn't be individual owners owning that, and that's what causes all that problem there. So I applaud your staff and what you do and how you. And what you're doing with our developments. I'm very pleased. That's all I got tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, sir. And ditto to kudos to staff. I know how much work you guys put into these projects, and you don't bring us things that aren't thoughtfully planned and brought forward. So I do appreciate the work that you all do on that. Excited to hear about Southern Glazer's announcement. They are a great community partner. I know that I used to be on the board of the Duran Cherry Foundation, and Southern Glazer, because obviously Duran owns a distributorship in Midtown Kansas City. Southern Glazer was a great sponsoring partner for a lot of fundraising events for that foundation and many others. So they're going to be a great community partner, and I'm excited about them finally announcing they're coming here. And then again, like Ms. Abdelgawad said, I would encourage everybody, please come out to the farmers market tomorrow, celebrate the 200th anniversary of statehood for the state of Missouri. While it'll be a small celebration back there, it'll give us an opportunity to reflect on the history of this great country, or this great state and country, and our city as well. So we're excited about that and celebrating that. I know that the governor's supposed to be in Harrisonville. Was it today or tomorrow? I know in his state tour, celebrating the centennial, or the bicentennial, that he's been traveling around, but he was supposed to be there. Gosh, I can't remember when it was. Was it today? Might have missed it. Anyway, he was coming to this. No, he didn't call me. Anyway, that's all I have for this evening. We have no reason to move into executive session.
We do not, sir.
All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we adjourn from the city council meeting for August the 9th.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn this meeting. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson absent. Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Circo?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Wills Scherzer?
Yes.